Welcome to How to Build a Strong Immune System. If you guys don't know us, my name is Trish Muehlstein. I'm a life coach and a health coach, nutrition advisor, former personal training director of Gold's Gym. So I've been in this industry for 20 years. Dr. Mayo, Darlene Mayo is a neurosurgeon, neuroscientist. Lori Spilker is a physician's assistant, been practicing medicine for, 26, 27 years, Lori? Long time.
So, yeah, too long to keep track of.
I know. 18 years in internal meds, and then the last 9 years in pain management. So between us, you've got the gamut. You run the gamut. So tonight we're here to talk to you about how to build a strong immune system. And before we start, I wanted to show this. I found this morning, this little clip of another doctor. And I don't know if you guys have been paying attention to social media lately, but things that doctors have been speaking out against seem to be taken down rather quickly. So we wanted to show you this little clip because it really resonates with our beliefs. And so go ahead, and if you play that, Darlene.
My name is Dr. Tapper. I'm in private practice in Omaha, Nebraska. I don't wear a mask. I see over 200 patients a week. I come in close proximity with every patient that I come across. Why haven't I contracted the so-called disease? Americans make up 5% of the world population, but yet we take in 65 to 70% of the world's pharmaceutical drugs. We are one of 2 countries that allows pharmaceutical advertisements on the television. But yet 80% of Americans are suffering with a chronic disease associated with poor lifestyle choices. 700,000 people will die of heart disease this year alone.
Doctor, please bring yourself in order.
600,000 people will die of cancer. 300,000 people will die of obesity this year. When is enough enough? If this is truly about health, then mandate healthy living, exercise, good food choices, chiropractic, outlaw tobacco and cigarettes, processed sugars. I believe it was Thomas Jefferson who stated, if people let the government decide what foods they eat and what medicines they take, their bodies will soon be in the sorry state as those souls who live under tyranny. You see, God made your body self-healing, self-regulating. If you give the body what it needs, it can be healthy. It is like a wilted plant that sits under the sun. An allopathic model to that is to shield the sun, to protect that plant against the sun, cut off its leaves, medicate or vaccinate that plant. But an epigenetic approach, a wellness approach, is to give that plant water, and it can be well. You see, your body is no different. We must eat well, move well, think well, and we can be well. In other words, your level of health is the genetic expression of your lifestyle choices. And I know full well that your body's ability to heal itself, to overcome disease and circumstances like corona, is far greater than anyone has ever permitted you to believe. Benjamin Rush, a signer of the Declaration of Independence, stated, unless we put medical freedom into the Constitution, a time will come when medicine will organize into an undercover dictatorship to restrict the art of healing to one class of men and deny equal privileges to others. That time is now.
That time is now, guys. I cannot agree with this doctor more. I want to bring up some points that he brought up. 300,000 people will die of obesity this year. 600,000 will die of cancer. He brought up the word lifestyle several times, which is the name of our group, Lifestyle Wellness Group. The body's ability to heal itself. Okay, he brought up some phenomenal points that I think are not being brought up these days. That's why we are doing this seminar tonight, to hit those points home with you. Okay, so tonight our goals that you leave this seminar with is to learn how each part of your immune system is designed to work for you, for your health, okay? To number 2, understand how bacteria, viruses, toxins affect a healthy immune system and how they affect a weakened immune system. And then to learn natural ways, at the end, we're going to teach you some natural ways that we use within and incorporate with our family to build our immune system. Now, before we get started, I want to put a disclaimer out there, okay, guys, that we are not making any claims in this presentation. We are not your health provider. We are not your personal physician. We are here to give you information to use at your discretion. Please consult your physician and discuss any changes to your healthcare regimen, okay? So let's get into it. 2020, Happy New Year! Everybody's excited going into this big year. It started off great with a bang, and then all of a sudden, we all got hit by a Mack truck, okay? And everything was told to shut down, to stop working, quarantine. You know, we had this crazy virus that was, you know, had all these different things that we were being told what was doing, right? So let me just go over my personal story. I was a little taken back when all this came out, you know, and I was like, okay, well, Trish, don't freak out that much, because when it comes to your body and health, I know what I'm doing. You know, I know how to protect myself. I know how to build my immune system. I know how to teach my kids. I know my kids are in great health. So I wasn't as worried as a lot of other people were worried, because, you know, a lot of other people do not have their health in control, and they had great reason to worry or to stress out. But like everybody else, I followed directions. I quarantined, and I, you know, stayed at home, and I, you know, just sat back and kind of watched. But one thing I did do is I started doing my research. I'm always a why person. So I started doing my research. I reached out to my partners, Darlene, Lori, another partner who's a pharmacist. You know, I gathered as much information as I possibly could gather. You'll see later that I, you know, looked up some stuff internationally from some different sources on the international basis, but I had to build myself a belief system of what was going on and look at the numbers and look at the facts, okay? And so the one thing that ran common through every single thing that I was finding was that you had a better chance at defeating this virus or not succumbing to this virus by building a strong immune system. And so tonight, what we're going to do is we're going to go through, and I truly believe that the fear for most people was because they don't understand what a virus does. They don't understand what a virus does. They don't understand what medicine does. They don't understand what plants do. They don't understand what your immune system, they don't have the confidence in their own body to operate like it has. And I think there's a lack of education and there's a lack of knowledge. And so tonight, what we're doing is we're coming to you with the knowledge so that you can have less stress and have less fear. And with that, I'm going to pass it off to Dr. Mayo.
All right. Thanks, Trish. We're going to go through the immune system. We're going to go through viruses in just a minute, but I want to just start out by talking briefly about how stress and fear affect your health, because I think this is very, very germane to what is going on here. So, as Trish mentioned, you know, when this first came out, we all got together and we started doing a lot of research, and we came to you live on our group many, many times and presented information. Well, here's something interesting that happened. In doing that, we were seeking knowledge, right? So I personally, I know Trish shared her story, but I signed up for a lot of newsletters and whatnot, and even some media sources, right? And it was so interesting to me what I would get in my email inbox every single day, right? Because we really don't watch the national news because we know it's all about hype, right? And so I was getting in my email inbox every day, so many more cases and so many more this and that. And my initial response was this fear, even though I know, and even though I feel very protected with what we're doing in our family, my initial response was fear. So I had to very carefully call out what were the sources that I'm using to gather information. Am I using sources that are trying to hype fear? Because then when I would look behind, and even in the past few weeks, you know, they would say, especially here in Florida, right? We were supposed to have the RNC, so they started doing all of these tests for coronavirus. So the numbers went up of cases. Of course, when you test more people, you're going to find. But then I would look at the death rate and it was going down. So we have to be very, very careful about what we let in front of our eyes. And here's the reason, okay? When you have chronic stress, when you have chronic fear, all right, so on a daily basis, even if it's for a short time, but every day, it causes a consistent release of a hormone called cortisol, okay? Cortisol in the short term, if it only is released every so often, is actually very helpful. It's actually anti-inflammatory. But when you have cortisol released on a regular basis, it causes the exact opposite effect. It increases the inflammation in your body. Now, if you've heard me talk before, you know I've talked about the effects of cortisol on the brain, how it really blocks your critical thinking, which I think is also important in these days, but we won't get into that here. But tonight, what I want to talk to you about is how cortisol affects your immune system. All right. There have been a lot of studies on this, and in the ones that are very particular, there was a study out of Carnegie Mellon that showed chronically elevated cortisol levels, which is caused by consistent anxiety and fear, increases your risk specifically of upper respiratory infections and the influenza virus, which I think is very, very relevant to what we're talking about here. So cortisol, when it's released on a regular basis, it's what we call a catabolizer. So what that means is its job is trying to replace what you have lost, the adrenaline you have lost during stress or during fear. So what does it do? It looks around for whatever it can find. If you are filling your body with healthy nutrition, healthy food, healthy supplements, it will use those components. But if you are not doing that to enough of a degree, it will start breaking down even your brain chemicals, like your dopamine levels, your serotonin levels. It will start breaking down all of these components in your body that leads to all of these things that you are seeing here, all right? Additionally, cortisol blocks your lymphocyte action, okay? Your lymphocytes, as we're gonna tell you in just a few minutes, are your major line of defense against viruses, all right? So choose carefully what you put in front of your eyes. Get your information, but get your information from sources that are presenting the information from a standpoint of information and not from a fear-mongering standpoint. Very, very critical so you can maintain your health. And I'm going to turn this over to Lori to tell us about viruses and the difference between viruses and bacteria.
Well, thanks, Dr. Mayo. Yes, I can relate to receiving all the emails because I'm actively practicing. I get emails from the state and the AAPA, and just my mailbox was inundated with all this information, and I'd have to siphon it out daily. It gets to the point now I just don't even look at it anymore because it's redundant, and I guess they want to keep that fear out there. So I delete now. So it's funny that you get those as well. So anyway, we're talking about viruses and bacteria. So to start off with, viruses and bacteria infections, both of those are by far the most common causes of illnesses for people. I don't think people realize it, but it's the most common cause of illness. bacteria, and we're going to start with bacteria and then we're going to go to viruses. So bacteria are single-celled organisms without a nucleus, and they are actually completely independent organisms and can eat and reproduce. So that's one difference between viruses and bacteria. So bacteria, under the right conditions, reproduce very quickly. They may divide into two separate bodies within like 20 minutes or so, but at the rate of just a little bit of time, in a few hours, they can actually multiply to be 1 million or so. And, you know, this is what we treat bacterial infections with is antibiotics. And, you know, there's various bacterial specimens out there, and there's specific antibiotics for those bacteria. I think that's really important. And I guess, you know, people think, oh, I'll just take penicillin. Well, penicillin doesn't cover all the bacterias. They cover very specific ones. And Zithromax will cover this specific bacteria. So you have to know what bacteria you have, and obviously you have to go to your physician to do this. They can do tests. They can see, you know, test cultures or blood cultures or sputum cultures or nasal swabs or throat swabs to see what type of bacteria you have. But there's very specific antibiotics for the bacteria. So, and bacteria are very big. All right, so that's one difference between bacteria and viruses. So viruses are significantly smaller. They are not really alive. They are a particle, and they are a fragment of a DNA with a protective binder or a protective coat around them. And actually they infect every living thing. And for this reason, they have a potential to be very dangerous to humans, but they do have to have a host to, or a host cell to infect in. So they, you know, they have to have a cell within a body to become activated. And a lot of times they just hang around in our body until they look for that host to come by, and then they just attack it. They are transmitted by air. Viruses are transmitted by air, by a carrier, which could be a mosquito or a flea, or by bodily fluids. So that's, you know, bacteria are living organisms, so they're a little different. But viruses have to be transmitted by air, a carrier, or by bodily fluids. Once the virus comes in contact with a cell, it lodges in the cell wall and injects its DNA, which is a genetic material, and the DNA inside the living cell kind of gets overtaken, and now the viral DNA reproduces viral particles. And if that's left undetected, the actual host cell will die, it'll burst and die, and then the viral particles spread to new cells and replicate, and this whole process starts all over. So, you know, the job of your immune system actually is to protect your body from these infections, and it does this by creating a barrier that prevents bacteria or viruses from entering in your body, and then by eliminating them before it reproduces. So that's the goal. So I like this slide here because it has the bacteria and the viruses in both. And, you know, the bad thing is that there's specific tests to test whether it's a virus or a bacteria, and your physician can do that for you. But for an example of how quickly it replicates, if someone sneezes on you, you inhale the viral particles. Well, it'll actually attack the lining cells, the cells that line your nose and your mucous membranes and your sinuses. Well, the virus particles actually attack the cells in those areas, and then they reproduce or replicate rapidly. Well, then those cells die, they burst and die off. Well, then a new virus spreads into your bloodstream or your lungs, and the same thing happens. Because you've lost the cell lining, because those cells have died, fluid starts accumulating and you get mucus, and then that fluid drips from your nose down into your throat, and then the same thing happens, and then you get a sore throat. And then the same thing happens and it spreads to through your lungs, and then you get a cough. Or it can actually get in your bloodstream, and then you can develop muscle ache. It goes to your muscles, and then you get muscle aches. So this is how fast. So if you think you've had the flu, you usually get a fever, runny nose, sniffles, sore throat, cough, and then body aches. So this is a prime example of how quickly this happens and why it happens. So I'm going to kick it over to Darlene, and she's going to explain a little bit more how our immune system works and how it is beneficial to protect us. Thanks.
Thank you, Lori. That was awesome. And thanks for explaining why we get all those symptoms, because I think sometimes we don't know why we get those. And that was a wonderful explanation for that. So your immune system, okay, this is immune system 101, so pretty basic, but starts really with our white blood cells. So you can see here the different types of white blood cells. They all have slightly different functions. The ones that generally they are designed to attack bacteria, attack viruses, and other germ pathogens that you may encounter, okay? And white blood cells, specifically, one of the things that they do is I describe it as eating the cells that are infected with a virus, because as Lori said, when a virus enters one of our healthy cells, it actually takes over the mechanics of that cell, right? And it starts replicating itself. So that cell is no longer functioning for the purpose it was designed, all right? So that cell actually has to be destroyed. Now, if the virus does the destroying of the cell, as she mentioned, then lots of virus particles are spewed. But if one of our white blood cells then eats that cell, okay, it's called phagocytosis, then it actually will destroy those viral particles in there and fewer of them will get out. However, when a cell dies in our body, even if it is dying because of the white blood cells, it actually is still releasing some toxins in your system, which is why even when you are in the recovery process and your white blood cells are doing the job they were designed to do, that you can still feel bad, right? It's because you're releasing some toxins into your system. So interestingly, over the last few years, scientists have discovered that red blood cells actually have some immune boosting properties as well. They can actually serve to weaken or even block the viruses from replicating, which is very good news because you have trillions and trillions of red blood cells in your system as well. So those can be very helpful. Now, I want to talk to you about the difference between antigens and antibodies, because if you've been listening at all to the different kinds of tests for coronavirus, there's these antigen tests, there's antibody tests. So let me talk to you about what those are. So antigens generally for these purposes they're external. So they're basically proteins on viruses or bacteria, all right, that signal our immune system to form an immune response. So it's something our immune system will recognize as foreign and will say, oh, I better start making some antibodies to attack this pathogen, right? So your T lymphocytes, your B lymphocytes generally make your antibodies. And antibodies those are part of your healthy immune system, and those are made very specifically for that antigen. So even when we have a new virus, such as this coronavirus, a novel coronavirus, our body is very, very smart and is able to create antibodies specifically for the antigen on the coronavirus, all right? So then what it does is our white blood cells start reproducing antibodies more rapidly, and they go seek out all of the antigens, right, that are attached to whatever virus they happen to be going after. Now, antibodies work in a couple of different ways. So number one is they can actually, as you can see in this picture here, they can bind to the antigen molecule. So they actually prevent these little spikes from getting into the other cells, which is really, really powerful because that keeps as many cells from getting infected. And also they produce a signal to the white blood cells to come and start that process of phagocytosis where they're eating the infected cells. So antibodies are very, very critical to your system. But essentially, if you want to think about it, there are some internal antigens, but we're not going to talk about that because that opens up a lot of complexities we don't need today. So antigens essentially are part of a virus or bacteria, and antibodies are part of your immune system's natural response. Okay. All right. Now, your immune system, it's even more than this. So there's many, and I'm not going to go too much into this, but I just want to show you, you have immune system response in your mucous membranes. Lori mentioned one of the greatest points of entry is through the nasal passages, right? That's what your mucous membranes have very strong response, immune response there. Your lymphatic vessels also have a strong immune response. Your thymus, your skin, even, it can serve as a protective barrier. Bone marrow makes a lot of these cells, right? Your spleen, some people don't have a spleen, but your spleen actually plays a major role in your immune response. And your tonsils as well, if you still have those as well, which is one of the reasons why I personally advocate against removing tonsils in young children, but we can get into that on another day. All right. So just to show you, you have your immune system, it's very extensive. And the other thing that I want to mention, and it'll be relevant in just a minute, is your immune system, it's also connected to a lot of your other systems. So your immune system, it's connected to your gut. It's also connected to your brain. It's connected to a lot of other systems, which is really relevant. Now, we wanted to talk about how viruses, bacteria, and toxins affect a weak immune system versus a strong immune system, because this is really important. And this is the reason why we're here. Okay. I'm going to say something, and it's a pretty bold statement, but Trish and Lori, if you disagree, you can pipe in here. But I personally think every person on this earth, with some very few exceptions, is going to come in contact with coronavirus at some point during your life. Okay. I believe that, just like every person who's probably on this call and most of the people in the world have come in contact with the influenza virus at some point in their life. Has everybody that's had contact with influenza gotten the flu? No, absolutely not. Or maybe they had it and they never showed symptoms, or they showed mild symptoms. Just like, and I think the new estimates have come out, 40% of people that come in contact with coronavirus do not show symptoms. Okay, that's a huge number. So chances are, whether you've had it, whether it's next week, next month, next year, or however long this is going to, this virus might stay around, which if influenza is any judge, it's been around for quite a number of years, centuries. So you're probably going to contact it. So don't let that scare you. Okay. Know that your body is designed to fight it. Okay. And when we go through this slide, I think it's going to empower you to know that as you take the steps to strengthen your immune system, that when you do come in contact with it, it's not going to be something that most people need to be afraid of. Okay. All right. So if you have a weak immune system, all right, so this means that maybe you don't have as high of a number of white blood cells or red blood cells that are going to respond, or they are not working very well, okay, then what happens is you have a slower immune response. It takes longer for your immune system to recognize that antigen, right? It takes longer for those antibodies to that specific antigen to actually form, okay? Because of that, more of your cells will get infected faster, particularly with a virus, all right? And when you have more cells infected with a virus, of course, you are going to have more severe symptoms, okay? And then as those are infected, even when your immune system finally can mount a response, all right? What happens is you've got, let's say with a weak immune system, you have 100,000, I'm just picking a number out of the air, 100,000 cells infected. and your immune system has to destroy 100,000 cells infected with a virus, you are going to have some symptoms that are really, really severe. And then you're going to get inflammation on top of it. That's one of the reasons why these severe cases of coronavirus, they're seeing at the hospitals severe inflammation that is actually leading to some people not surviving, right? These are the folks that are having to go on ventilators and are in the intensive care unit. So also, you're going to recover more slowly because it's putting more stress on your immune system. And then here is an even more severe problem, okay? Your immune system, because it is weak, it relies on your other organ systems for support. Okay, so it puts more stress on your heart. It puts more stress on your pancreas. It puts more stress on your lungs that are already being affected, right? Because it's trying to draw what it can to help mount a response, all right? And so if you have, even if you don't have any other medical conditions, that can precipitate them, right? But if you do, let's say you're somebody that has diabetes, okay, and your immune system is weak, then you are going to have greater difficulty managing your blood sugar. And we see this very commonly. I used to see this all the time at the hospital. Lori, I know you see this all the time, is that those with diabetes, when they get sick, their blood sugar is off the charts, right? It just cannot be managed. It's really difficult. The good thing to know, and we're going to talk to you about how to build up a strong immune system in just a couple minutes, so don't worry about that. But just to show you the difference, when you have a strong immune system, your white blood cells, they are right on it. They sense an antigen and they start producing antibodies. So it actually, your body doesn't have as much time to continue to produce these viruses and infect cells. You wind up having a fewer number of infected cells. Because of that, you have less severe symptoms for a shorter period of time because your immune system is mounting the response that it is designed to respond. And importantly, your immune system is not reliant as much on your other organ systems, so they can do their job. Each organ system in your body is designed to do its job, right? That's what it's for. And when we support each system as it is designed to be supported, it can do its job well, and it doesn't have to, rob from Peter to pay Paul, so to speak, okay? So I wanted to really emphasize the difference in those. And that's why, so these folks this 40% of individuals that have come in contact with coronavirus who don't show any symptoms have strong immune systems. This is why. So who do you want to be? This is why I'm not worried about it. I'm not worried about it, right? I mean, we've had workers having to come to our house, and saying, do you want me to wear a mask? And I say, no, I'm not worried about it because my immune system's supported. My children's immune system is supported. They know that and they're confident. And it's really, there's a lot of power when you have this knowledge. And that's why we wanted to come to you and share this today. So Trish, I think, is going to go over some factors that weaken your immune system. So I'll give it back over to you.
Awesome. Thank you, ladies. So yes, I 100% agree with that statement, Darlene. I believe that within the next 2 years, everyone is going to come in contact with this virus. And whether it takes a hold and you actually have symptoms and get sick is really based on whether your immune system is strong or whether it's weak, or whether you're going to, be down. I know people that have had it personally. So whether it's going to, I know people that have had it that, just for a few days, they kind of feel off and they feel, kind of achy and, but nothing that will keep them down. But of course they stay to themselves and all of that. But really, and then maybe, I cannot tell you how many times I have had a baby in my arms in the pool or a small child during flu season and then call the next day and say, little Johnny has the flu. At least 5 or 6 times during the flu season, and I never get the flu or get sick, so I've got a strong immune system. I'm doing everything I can to protect myself, right? So we all, when come on, people, we have all come in contact during flu season with the flu virus. All of us have. We all do, no matter what profession, at the grocery store, in the past when you were at the grocery store. How do you know that person that touched every single your groceries through the scanner didn't go home the next day and get the flu? Okay, so build your immune system and then you don't have to worry. So how do we build an immune system? Well, there's some things that you need to avoid so it doesn't weaken your immune system. Okay, and these are lifestyle choices. Everything you see in this chart right here, you have complete and total control over. It is your responsibility to make a decision whether you want to have these in your life or not have them in your life, or have a healthy diet or have an unhealthy diet, whether you want to, have healthy sleep, whether you want to avoid alcohol. One of the biggest things that I saw through this whole entire, months of shutdown is I saw a lot of people consuming a lot of alcohol. I think, Darlene, you told me that sales went up like 70% or something in alcohol. Well, that's one of the ways to weaken your immune system. So that's something that I don't think all those people that went out and bought alcohol and sat around their house and drank, I don't think they knew that, because I think if they knew that, they wouldn't have made those choices. Stress and anxiety, that's a hard thing, but we, in our group, we have a lot of ways to meditate or yoga or things for you to help deal with stress and anxiety. I have seen a lot of exercise, a lot of people getting out there and exercising, and walking and getting fresh air, but like I said, this is everything on this chart is all within your control. So if you want to have a strong immune system, these are some things that you might want to avoid that could weaken your immune system. So I'm going to kick it over, I think, to Lori.
Yeah, before I say anything, I want to echo what Darlene said. So, if your immune system's weak, and it will affect everything, all the other organs, like she said, your sugar goes up, but then that creates other problems. So, the symptoms of diabetes get so much worse. It's not just your numbers going up, it's, your circulation, the neuropathy that you get with the diabetes, any complications from diabetes with eyes and so forth, all of those worsen and they're harder to get under control. So that's just one example, but I wanted to echo it because we saw it all the time in internal medicine. So it's very important that you keep a balance and you're regulated with your immune system. So, every part of your body, even your immune system, works better when it's protected by environmental factors or bolstered by a healthy immune system or a healthy living strategy. I mean, if you think of it like a plan or a strategy, it makes it a little easier. So all of the things that were on the previous slide, like the smoking, well, don't smoke. That'll boost your immune system. Don't stress. That helps. So it's kind of the opposite of those common sense things that was on the previous slide. Eat a diet high in fruits and vegetables, exercise, maintain your body weight. It helps, exercise helps with circulation, and we need our blood to carry oxygen to all cells so they can function properly. It's just very important. Don't drink too much alcohol. I mean, it's just very obvious. And wash your hands, little simple things. But detoxify, that's huge. We are exposed to so many environmental toxins, so many toxins in our food. And we've talked about this incessantly in our group, but it's very important. You need to get good sleep. Your body detoxifies when you sleep a good 7 hours. You need to hydrate. That's part of detoxifying too. You need to sweat. We use a herbal cleanse in our house that helps eliminate the 7 channels of the elimination for our bodies. So I mean, and it's all natural stuff. So it's herbs and nutrients that our bodies need that force those organs to detoxify. Balance. You got to maintain a healthy gut. We use probiotics, and you need to use, we know there's a gut-brain connection. So when your gut's off, your brain's off. Your cortisol levels, your dopamine levels, they're altered, and you don't want one to overtake the other one, because then things get out of balance. And it's very important from the inflammation standpoint. Also, nutrition. There's micronutrition, malnutrition. So we are so deficient on the essential trace minerals and vitamins that are in our foods, because they're not there anymore. So you need to supplement. We are lacking vitamin B's, B12, B6, A, C, vitamin D, E, omega-3, xanthones, antioxidants, organic sulfur, turmeric. So there's all types of nutrients and macronutrients that we are deficient in, and putting those in our bodies will help build up the missing components, because our food is lacking now. So just little common sense things: detoxify, sweat, hydrate, put good stuff in, alkaline water, please, and sleep, and just make smart decisions, and then balance out. Keep your gut balanced with probiotics, and then your gut and brain will be in sync, and then put good nutrients in your body. So I think that's all we have for what our topic is tonight. I think we're going to go into a new section about what we use collectively to boost our immune system.